Today's guest has gone from between the pipes to behind the bench of Minot State hockey. Joined now by Ryan Miner. He's the head coach of the Minot State women's hockey team. Now, it's a great time to be able to meet up and do this with you, Ryan. But I want to start off real quick. Met up with you in the parking lot here at the Student Center, and you're got that nice tricked out white GMC truck with the black rims and everything. So, first of all, what made you one of those guys?
Well, I've never owned a truck before. Coming down to North Dakota, obviously you see it a lot. The harsh winters. It was pretty hilly in Minot here, and you get around in my car before that, and there's a few times where I was sliding up and down the road, and when it came time to get a new vehicle, I decided to throw in my money and go big and get a truck.
You're the second curveball intro guest in the history of the show, only behind Jake Stack liking chicken strips from a week or so back. So congratulations. It's a club of very few. Let's switch over to, of course, your career. What made you join the Minot State hockey team as a goalie during your career, besides maybe, knowing about the national championship hype around it,
So I was playing juniors up in Manitoba. It was kind of up and down. I started in junior A up in Swan River. I got cut my first year and ended up playing junior B at 17, and then same thing kind of happened to me when I was 18. So at that point, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and I wanted to focus on school. So right at 18, I decided that I wanted to enter college, and obviously with 2 years still left of junior hockey, not a lot of teams look at you when you're that young. So what I ended up doing was contacting Wade, and at that point, I had known about the program. I had some friends that had played here, and obviously he said I was too young at that point and suggested Botno. So I got in contact with Travis Rubchinski at Botno, and he took me right away. I spent 2 years there at Botno, and then I tried to actually transfer to Minot after my first year at Botno, but the goalie positions here were full, so Wade had told me to spend one more year there before transferring. So after my 2 years at Botno, I transferred to Minot and played my 2 years here. I would have liked to have played a fifth. I would have if I had the chance, but I was 1 year too early. The year after I was done, they put in that fifth-year rule, so it was kind of disappointing. But at the same time, that was right when I got into coaching. So,
all right, now you're talking about making that next step in school was important. Tell us the real truth about how important education is to hockey players.
Well, it's huge. I mean, for a lot of
all right. Go on. Okay.
For a lot of people, it's hard to go professional. I mean, it doesn't happen to everyone. I mean, you have to have the right mindset that you're still trying to go as far as you can in hockey, but at the same time, knowing that you're going to get an education that if hockey doesn't work out, you can go out into the world and get a good career, So my focus going into college, obviously, I wanted to play a high level of hockey, but I also wanted to get a good degree, and I kind of jumped around here and there. I started out, I wanted to go into law, and after a semester I was like, know what, I'm going to switch to psychology, and then after that I'm like, no, this isn't for me, I'm good with numbers, and I finally decided that I wanted to go into accounting and finance, and always been good with numbers, and I didn't take many accounting classes at Botno. It was mostly my gen eds, but when I got to Minot, I really got to know the professors, and just fell in love with the school, and the classes were tough. They challenged me, and at the end of the day, I came out with a degree, and I'm very fortunate for it. Currently, right now, I'm in my master's program here at Minot State. I'm in sports management here, so just completed my first year. I'm on the 2-year track. I wanted to spread it out a bit with coaching, so come spring next spring, I'll have a master's degree from Minot State as well. So.
And the ever-evolving history continues and rolls on. So as a former lumberjack, I'll ask you, how nice was it to watch from afar the team's development, even going into this season. Obviously, unfortunate they couldn't get the Nationals, but I mean, you kind of had to see it coming with Coach Rybczynski's program that they could make that height, especially at like the JC success that they had before.
Well, it was kind of an odd 2 years for myself because the previous years the previous years before I was there, the team was really strong. They were going to nationals. The 2 years I was there we'll call it rebuilding years.
Wade Regier calls his playing career the lean years here, so you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, so we'll call them rebuilding years, because we weren't a strong team. Some good, talented players. A lot of them went on to play ACHA Division I or Division II hockey elsewhere, but it definitely helped me build and put me in a good position for Minot State. I was probably seeing 40, 50 shots a game when I was playing with Botnos, so, it was a real test, and it definitely helped improve my game. And it's funny because the years before I was there, they were really good, and then a year or two after I left, they won a national championship. So I don't know if that's on me. I don't know if that's on me, but
you were one. You laid the groundwork.
Well, yeah.
All right. That's all we can say about that, and it's a great thing to say about it, Ryan. And actually, recently, it's kind of a similar transition, perhaps, that DCB is going through. Like, they're just starting up their women's hockey team. Reed Loucks, former player, becoming a women's coach. Pretty much exactly what you're doing here with Minot State. So first, just curious a little bit about how the transition was for you from finishing your playing career to becoming the women's hockey coach.
Yeah, after my final year of playing for the men's team, I still had a year left of school. I wasn't ready to give up the game yet, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to kind of stay involved. So at the time, Kyle Volk was coaching the women's team, and it's kind of funny. We were on a trip to Colorado, both the men's and women's teams, and I got scratched that game. And I'm standing against the glass watching the guys' team warm up, and the girls had just finished, and they come out, and we were kind of chatting. They're like, "What are you going to do next year?" And I was like, "I'm not sure." And someone, lo and behold, suggests, "Hey, you should come coach our team." And I was like, at first, I was like, "No way, I could never do this." And so over the next couple weeks, once the season kind of came to an end, I was kind of really determining and deciding if that was the right move for me. And Kyle and I had been close. We played together on the men's team, and so I had a couple conversations with him, and he said, I do need the help, and come try it out and see how it is. And it was history from there. We started out together. I think halfway through the season, his job got busy with the National Guard, and he had to step down from the head coaching position just because he wasn't able to make it 100% of the time. So I kind of took over midway through the season from being, I guess, a assistant coach, if you want to call it, to that head coaching position in a sense. And he was there for the rest of the season, but obviously with his work, he had to miss the occasional practice. There was a couple of road trips where he wasn't able to come on. So I kind of really stepped into my own there. And I think going back to getting my degree in accounting and finance, the team had laid a foundation, and I think the biggest work that needed to be done was putting together a proper budget, putting together some, a good structure.
I was going to say that has to help you figure out the cheapest road trip option possible, or what?
Yeah, the budget when I started was very small. Obviously, we were getting some funds from SGA. The girls were paying a bit to play, and then doing the same kind of sponsor thing that the men's program does, but obviously not being as successful as the men's programs in terms of receiving funds. So limited budget. The nice part about being in D2 was that the teams were a lot closer than they are now. We had NDSU, ACC up in Brandon. We had the couple teams in Minnesota and a couple just in Wisconsin right across the border. So, it was close. And obviously we kind of treated things differently then compared to how we did now. We would travel the same day as a game and leave right after. And so that we would only have to stay one night in hotel. The girls were paying for their own meals.
Sounds exhausting too.
Yeah, it was tough.
Life, yeah.
It was, I loved it. It was a great experience, and it's what started my career. And I had to drive the vans a couple times. I drove a wheelchair bus, actually. I remember a funny story. We were traveling to Duluth, and Kyle couldn't come, and we had like 15 girls on the roster at the time, but there was like five or six girls that were either sick or had exams, so they had to stay behind. So we only had like 8 or 9 skaters and a goalie, and we loaded up one of those buses, and I drove the thing all the way to Duluth and back. And that was one of the crazier experiences of my coaching career. Just the wind was crazy. It was storming. Just an experience that you'll never forget, especially being a new coach. So
yeah, I have a similar traveling story. I had to make a cruise because the ship leaves if you're not there, and there was like a fog warning that like wiped out flights here for 2 days. So the scariest moment of my life was I had to drive overnight without knowing I had to do it from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. from Minot to Minneapolis, but we made it. And we had a great time, my dad and sister, cruising around the Caribbean. Wanted to touch on a couple of other guys that we started to talk about. Kyle Volk, coach right before you. I just want to say he seems like he's hilarious. I remember one time I saw him in a game, and his buddy was right behind him, and he says hello to me from about 10 feet away. It's that classic moment where you're not sure if he's talking to you or the guy right behind you. Luckily, he was talking to me, but his buddy messed up, and he went in for like the bro hug of Kyle. And Kyle was talking to me the whole time. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I wasn't talking to you, ugly. What's up, man? Any other good Volk stories?
Kyle and I were really close playing on the men's team, and then we started to coach together. Funny thing about Kyle is, he has a good sense of humor, but when he needs to be strict or, needs to be stubborn, he was. He'd be joking, or him and I'd be laughing around, and then all of a sudden something would click, and he'd be like, "Hey, get focused." And, that was kind of the thing I liked about Kyle, was that, he knew when to have a good time, and he knew when it was time to focus in and kind of get ready and prepare. And, obviously there were some good times together, and won't go into too many details, but I really enjoyed coaching with him. I know he's living in Arizona now. Wish he was still around. We were close friends before he moved away, and we still chat quite frequently. So he was the one that brought me onto the women's side of things, and when he left, I kind of had some big shoes to fill.
100%. I even saw that at a Volk practice one time when I'm going to do the interviews and stuff. Everybody's joking around, but then the girls mess up the first drill. He's like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to a national tournament in 2 weeks, but we can't get this down. What on earth is going on?" Real quick question too. I said the transition was a little similar. Did you and Reed Loucks overlap at all at DCB, or was that just a different time?
Yeah. So I played my first year with Reed at DCB. I don't want to give Tony and myself too much credit, but Corey Gorder is the new AD at Botno, and he had reached out to us and said they were looking to start a women's program, and kind of asked us what they needed to do to kind of get things going. So obviously, with the success we've had with our program, they kind of wanted to follow suit. So
what were you telling them, really?
On my side of things, it was mostly budget. Being a numbers guy, I showed him what it would cost to run a women's program. I kind of gave him some ideas on where to kind of start recruiting. Obviously, when they announced their program, we were for the most part done recruiting, so we had a good sized list of players that we're still looking for a team to play. We're interested in our program. We just didn't have the space for them, so we probably handed them, I'd say probably 10 to 15 names of players that have actually signed there. And like I said, they did the recruiting. We didn't do it for them. We just kind of helped to push them in the right direction. And when I heard that Reed was potentially the person to get the position. I was thrilled. You know, he was a great guy. We were teammates at Botno. Real down to earth guy. Knows the game well. Has the playing experience, and you know it's kind of going to be the same transition for him as it was for me my first year. You know, it's a lot different going from playing men's hockey to coaching women's hockey. But you know, I think he's up for the task, and I'm excited to see them come this fall. And we have a few games scheduled against them next season, and it'll be interesting. You know, back in the day, Minot State Botno games were a big thing on the men's side, and we're kind of looking to do that, have that same rivalry on the women's side.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of still doing the same thing again, not only with player to coach, but you're going pretty much really close after your careers. You're young guys. Talk a little bit about being like relatively close in age to the players, the good and bad of relating while also having to maybe get a stern message across from time to time.
You know, being my age, I think has its ups and downs. I can relate to the players, knowing kind of what they went through since I, you know, just got out of university a few years ago. Obviously, I'm still in college doing my master's program, but that's online. But you know, in that sense, I think it works well. At the same time, my first couple of years, obviously, when you have to be stern, you won't really, you know, at times, you know, I wish I was a bit older, I would say, just because maybe there would have been times where they were like, oh, crap, coach is mad, like, we better, like, follow suit compared to, well, my first couple of years, and, you know, time to time, well he's young, like, he knows what we're doing, like, so, you know, in that sense, it's tough, but at the same time, this past season I brought on Tony. Obviously, he's a little older than I am, obviously, and he has a family of four. And you know, one of the main reasons I brought Tony on was to kind of add that discipline and that knowledge and experience. And obviously,
I was gonna say you're probably just handing all that stuff to him, aren't you?
In a sense, yes. You know, he bringing him in, having that experience. He has 10 plus years of me of coaching hockey, and you know, when Tony came on and was interested in, you know, being a part of the program, that was kind of his biggest thing, was helping me bring a sense of culture and discipline, in a sense, to the program. Obviously not in that sense where it's do what we say or you're not going to play, but just in a sense where getting the girls focused, getting them ready, making sure that if they do something wrong, they know they did something wrong. And that was kind of what I struggled with my first couple of years. Obviously now, with I think every player next year will be someone that I recruited. You know, so there is that connection in a sense where they have that trust and respect that they know that if I say something, they're going to follow it. So,
how much more comfortable are you right now in where you're at as a head coach versus like just starting out, and how the heck am I going to do this?
Oh, it's enormous. You know, my first couple years, you know, we were a club team who was barely getting by, you know, scraping by financially. Obviously, we were a good team right from the start, right from when I started. But you know, it had that, I don't want to say it had that real club feeling to it, but in a sense it was. Not to take anything away from the teams before me, and even when I started, you know, there was some groundwork that had to be laid down, and you know, now where we're under the athletic department, we have strict rules and policies, you know. Everything is kind of follows suit to the other NCAA sports on campus, you know, where the girls know that they have to follow along and kind of do what we preach, in a sense, if they want to play. And to add to that, you know, building our roster too definitely helped. You know, when I started, we had 10 girls. You know, next year we're going to have 27, 28 players on the roster, and it's getting to that point where it's like I have to perform in the classroom, on the ice in practice, in the weight room every day if I want to have that opportunity to play. And, building that national championship culture has kind of laid that foundation of what we expect from them and what we're kind of pushing for at the end of the season.
How did the change from being a club team to being an MSU athletic department team go down?
So I want to, in a sense, we were in a position where we were struggling in terms of support. Every year, our community support has grown, but we just weren't there yet. And obviously, we wanted to legitimize the program as much as we could. And the suggestion came about that we would potentially join the athletic department. And I sat down with Andy Carter, who's now my boss.
Where does that come from? You say, like, the suggestion comes out.
Well, to be quite honest, as we were growing, our budget was increasing. We didn't think that we could financially afford to be on our own. Mm-hmm. And now that's not saying that we are fully funded in any sense by athletics, but they've kind of helped put that stability in there where they're setting us up with the right people. People, even in the community, people know that we're part of athletics now and treat us so much differently than we were when we were just a club sport on campus. And I think that really opened people's eyes because, like, my first couple of years, I would walk in to a business and try and talk to someone about a sponsorship, and they didn't even know Minot had a women's team. And now you can go into any business and just chat about hockey knowing that they know about the program. So, everything we've done over the last couple of years has been to try to kind of let the community know that we are around, we are successful, and at the same time build that experience for the students, joining the athletic department. We got the full-time trainers. We have full-time strength and conditioning coaches. They get access to all the perks that the NCAA players get, like the academics center and those kinds of things. And just the same kind of support that those other athletes are getting, our girls are kind of getting that same thing. So kind of the idea of building around that we want to treat the program like an NCAA program, has definitely helped our culture and obviously has helped us with success. So kind of just jumping back,
Yeah, like the meeting with Andy Carter, yeah.
Yeah, just jumping back to that. I mean, I don't really know who suggested it. It was brought to our attention. We sat down and discussed it for a few weeks. Obviously, looked at the pros and cons of what it would look like, and at the end of the day, it turned out to be really beneficial for our program.
Now that you're in the department, in the early stages of this relationship, I guess if there's anything else besides like the financial and student resource security that you'd like to mention that has really helped you guys, and then conversely, what do you think is kind of still being developed in that relationship as you kind of feel things out? It's still relatively new, to be a part of this department.
Well, in a sense, just the leadership in general, obviously as a club team that's not when we weren't part of athletics, I got to make every decision, whether it was good or bad for the program. I did make mistakes. In the beginning, I was still learning, now having that guidance of, hey, is this the right thing to do, or is this the right person to talk to, has definitely helped me, especially, especially like right now in the off season where we're recruiting, we're making our schedule, we're getting ready to go out and start sponsorships here in the next week or so. Just knowing that, there's someone there, there's a group of people there that care about the program and are kind of helping us build it, because there is still a lot to build, and obviously we want to keep building every year. And I think just that guidance and that structure, that additional structure that comes from being within the department, having someone to report to, and kind of making sure we follow the strict guidelines that everyone else in the department follows. Everything by the book, and it's definitely helped our program.
Now, I know that you're an accounting and finance guy. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if you're a club or a varsity affiliated hockey team. It doesn't matter if you're just living your personal life or running a business. Any kind of less time that you have to devote to thinking about, boy, how am I going to make money work? There has to be some kind of trickle-down effect to, boy, I'm not using that time to have to think or be worried about it as much as before. What's kind of been like the trickle-down benefit for the program where you as a coach leading this program, like there's other avenues that you can maybe just get better at, like in a time where otherwise you'd be worried about connecting the finances in the past?
Well, I think, when you look at our program, the key things that we focus on besides the off-ice development is the recruiting side of it, and then obviously moving into Division One last season, building a strength of schedule that'll be competitive for the girls. A lot of the behind the scenes finance stuff takes up most of my time. That's why. I've been in the office every day so far this summer, and working to figure out how and what we have to do to get ready for next season. During that time, recruiting's done, our schedule's set, and we'll probably release it within the next month or so. And other than that, just making sure that the girls are taken care of. The semester just ended, so final grades came out, making sure they're enrolled for next season. Or next semester, sorry, I should say, and just making sure that they're taken care of. I guess on my end right now, but a lot of it is just prepping for next season.
Let's talk a little bit about the players that made this season happen for you guys, because the big jump was the added depth had to help you out a ton, but some frontline players made you guys just a freaking wagon and a national championship favorite pretty much by the end of it. Let's give the credit to the core that you had and who really stepped up to make this fuller team this season.
Yeah, this was kind of the first season where we had a full roster, and obviously leading the way we had our captains and alternates. Sammy Joe led the team in points this season. And then, Mackenzie Balog was right behind her. And then Brooke Mead on the point was kind of that leadership on the back end. And, we had Shelby as a senior goaltender as well. Obviously, she didn't get as many minutes this year as she has in the past, but at the same time, she was still instrumental in, molding those two freshman goaltenders and making sure that they were prepared and knew what it was like to play in big games and things like that. But if you want to talk about those players, Mackenzie Balog has been just, I'll say, a rock star over the past 4 years. She's has all the records in terms of points, goals, assists, that kind of thing. But at the same time, her defensive game was just as strong. Playing on the PK, breaking the puck out, just being in the right spot at the right time, and when Sammy Joe came in, I think Mac kind of helped mold her in that sense, and those two really gelled over the last couple of years. And then even before that, our other assistant coach, Vanessa Grimstad, was kind of one of those key players who was alongside Mackenzie, who's now coaching with Tony and I. She was instrumental too in kind of getting those younger girls, prepared and teaching them what it's like to play on a winning team and have a winning culture, and adding that depth each year, adding stronger players. Every year we had a good class, and the depth just kept growing, and going from 10 players to 15 players to 22 and now to 27 next year. They were kind of that glue that kind of started the whole thing, and girls followed suit of what they did and wanted to play like them, and they set a good example. They were great role models, and they kind of just led the way in every aspect.
I want you to be able to answer this outside of the scope of, first of all, it sucked that the national championship didn't happen, and second of all, without needing to give credit to other contenders, aka what you would basically tell me, which would air on the freaking news. How were you guys going to win the national championship this year if you were going to play it?
I want to say yes. We had a really good shot. We were in that championship game in conference against Liberty. It was just one bad bounce that cost us the game. Otherwise, we would have went to overtime. We were undefeated in overtime this year, and we had that momentum going for us. We had just scored a goal late in the third period, and we were starting to pick things up, and the girls knew what they were playing for, and just unfortunately didn't go our way. Now, at the same time, Liberty's two-time national champs. Lindenwood has been a strong program for years. Same with Adrian. It was the first time we'd beaten Lindenwood. It was the first time we played Adrian and we beat them in overtime.
That was like a tough road trip too, right?
Oh,
I mean, just from the scope of like what you had to go through, right?
Yeah, crazy road trip. Adrian and Miami twice. Huge weekend for us. It's basically what jumped us up from 4-2. But going into that national tournament, all 8 teams were going to be competitive, but you had that feeling that it was our year. Obviously, as a coach who has gotten second place 3 years in a row, I need one here.
We're not the Bills, okay?
Yeah, I need one here, and it was unfortunate that it got canceled. We didn't have that shot, but moving forward to next year, now we're just building a team to win a national championship next year.
What do you like about next year's team, the girls that are coming back, the new recruits, and also what's been kind of the balance for the top-end talent that you have? Does it come from mostly like the original MSU recruits, or has it been some plug-in transfers? Like, where do you kind of put the balance of for that?
Well, that's kind of tough to answer because
that's why I asked.
If you look at our program next year, every player has that opportunity to play on that first or second line, and we don't even have 1, 2, 3, or a fourth line. We play the players who are working the hardest and performing the best during that game. Obviously we have to set a lineup, and there are going to be players that are going to be scratched. But at the same time, whether our philosophy has always been, whether you're a senior, junior, freshman, or sophomore, whoever's working the hardest and showing us that they deserve to be on the ice is going to get that opportunity. So obviously we've had some real studs come into the program the last couple of years. And even this upcoming year, we got some studs coming into the program, and just to add to that talent that we already have from our senior and junior classes. But it's I really don't know what's going to happen next year because there's so much talent. Every player on this team is a talented hockey player. It's going to be tough to figure out matchup our lineups for the season, and who's going to get to play. And it's going to be tough when the season starts and we have to decide who's not going to be playing. We have a bigger roster next season, and there are going to be 6 or 7 scratches each game. So it's really going to make the girls have to work for it in practice and off the ice and that kind of thing. But, looking at our incoming class next year, we got probably the best North Dakota talent in the state this past season is coming to Minot. We got 3 strong transfers coming from Lindenwood Belleville because their school shut down, and we're looking for a different opportunity. And then you look at our Canadian freshmen coming in, all top players from their programs, and they're going to come in, and obviously it's going to take some time to adjust to the college game, but they're going to push the upperclassmen, and the upperclassmen are going to push them. And like I said, whoever's performing and working hard is going to get their shot.
I'll take it, man. I don't think you're being too cliche about it. I don't think you're sounding too defensive compared to the hockey parents that don't exist that would give a coach grief anytime. Tell me a little bit about the what it was like recruiting Belleville players compared to like the conventional. Okay, they're coming up from high school and their school isn't shut down.
So, we have 3 Belleville girls transferring in: Megan Norris, Sydney Spicer, and Jessica Walker. Funny enough, I actually tried to recruit Walker and Spicer a year ago and 2 years ago to come play the program. Walker's from Manitoba, Spicer's from Alberta. So I was working really hard to try and get them here a couple of years ago. One of my good friends, Kat Hanna, who used to coach at Lindenwood Belleville, who is coaching a D3 team out east now, we competed for players for our programs, and obviously she won those battles. So for those 2, when the opportunity came, I jumped on it. They reached out and were looking for something different. And Lindenwood still has a team next year at their main campus, but they just wanted to go a different direction. And having for those 2 players, having wanted them a year ago, 2 years ago,
it's a contending team, and still it's not happening. Huh?
Yeah, wanting them, and they had that experience, and they were just going to add that depth to our program. Megan Norris, now obviously she's from Ontario, kind of out of our recruiting range. Our recruiting trips have always been kind of Manitoba, Sask, Alberta, and then obviously North Dakota and the surrounding states. She was second in the league in goals this season. An offensive threat. She was kind of looking at her options of what she wanted to do, knowing she wasn't returning to Lindenwood, and we had to fight for her. A lot of teams wanted her, just like the other 2, and at the end of the day, for those 3, they knew coming in here that they were going to get that championship experience, knowing that they were going to get treated well and that they were going to win a national championship.
Obviously, it's completely different scenarios for all 3, but it kind of feels a little bit when it comes to that second chance of recruiting. One of my favorite 30s for 30s is the SMU Pony Excess or whatever. Again, that was a different scenario of like paying players, and that's why that got the death penalty versus, programs shifting, moving, ending, what have you. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to have recruited somebody once and then get that second opportunity. Can you tell me a little bit about that? When you're talking about the crop of players next year, you mentioned a little bit how you believe you're getting like the best North Dakota player coming up. Who is that, and what do you like?
Well, I would say North Dakota players. Obviously we have local talent, O'Malley Esslinger, top player on our team for Minot High this year, in my opinion. Obviously, like any other recruit, she's going to have to adjust to the college level, but we watched her over the last couple of years, and she kept growing as a player, and we're excited to work with her. From Botno, we have Ashley Spence, who's actually been playing up in Canada for the last 3 years. Obviously, knowing her and what kind of recruiting in that area, I've been watching her for the last couple of years as well. And another player, defenseman, who's kind of grown over the last few years and really honed in on her game. And having her from Botno obviously was an easy decision for her to stay close to home, and so that was huge. And then for the first time in, as far as I know, we have 2 players coming from Bismarck. Over the last few years, trying to recruit in North Dakota, it always seemed like those players from Bismarck, Grand Forks, Fargo were always so set on going D3, and it's understandable because at the time our program wasn't as established as it is now, and they thought that they had the opportunity to play better hockey at the Division III level. And with our success over the last couple of years, these North Dakota players are starting to realize that they can play really competitive hockey right here at home. And I think we're really going to prove that this year. We have I'm kind of blurting out our schedule here, but we're lined up to play Concordia this year in a exhibition series. So, that's going to be a huge series for both programs, as, it kind of shows the divide between ACHA and NCAA D3. So I'm excited for that. So jumping back to the Bismarck girls, we got Riley Ball and Anna Gurman. Riley Ball was second in the league in the state in scoring. Right behind her line mate, Madison Brown, who's a grade 9 freshman this year. They were line mates. Every goal that one or the other scored, for the most part, one was setting the other one up. So that having one of the top scorers in the league and adding that to our program is huge. And then Anna Gurman on the back end, she's been one of those top D-man in the state for the last 3-4 years here, so really having that opportunity to have those local girls stay home, they had other offers, and they just, they know that they got to stay close to home. They were going to get that experience, and they saw the success that our program was having and wanted to be a part of it.
And you were this close to getting Britta Curl before she went to Wisconsin in the national team, right?
Oh, no.
That's the story, and you're sticking to it? Okay, no, absolutely not. All right, well, how about, you were talking about the Bismarck Linemates. Have you had many maybe package deal recruiting stories at all, like with players that come here and have the chemistry, or is that a first for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say package deal. This is, I think, the first year where we've had more than one player from the same team come to us, obviously. But what you're starting to see as trends is we're building relationships with different teams within the U.S. and Canada, where this year there's a player or two that'll come from that same program. This year, Ashley Spence and Jillian Gervin are both coming from Westman. And they're, I think, the 6th or 7th player to come from Westman, which has always been a strong, dominating AAA program in Manitoba.
You're starting to hold it down more.
Yeah, and that program, that's kind of the southwest Manitoba area. So, again, close to home, that kind of thing. And, so building, I wouldn't, when we recruit players, we're recruiting each player individually. Obviously, if they're coming from the same team, they are. But at the same, like I said before, we're starting to build these relationships with these coaches of these programs and these teams, knowing that when their players are starting to look for places to go, we're going to be one of the first places that they call and say, "Hey, you need to take a look at this player if you haven't already."
I know for as much truth as we can, whether you dipped into the cliche trove or not, for how competitive the team is going to be next year internally to get the good minutes and all this stuff. Something that probably won't help your evaluation process would be if you would suit up the pads in a practice against the girls. Have you ever done that, and how do you think that would go?
Yeah, I put on the pads twice a year. I put them on for...
What's the occasion?
I put them on for the Minot State men's rec tournament, and I always throw them on right before Christmas break for the girls. And so, I threw them on this past, the last practice before Christmas break. Probably the most exhausted I've been in a long time, I'd say.
So you're not like teaching the goalies yoga lessons or anything these days, huh?
No, the flexibility and everything. I mean, I still have got it in a sense, but I've lost a lot, I'd say.
How would you look if you were like David Ayres for Carolina or Scott Falser for Chicago? Say the Jets need their emergency goalie coming up, and Ryan Miner's in the building. How's it going to happen?
Well, jump in the net and pray to God that you stop the puck. That's actually happened to me before, not as an emergency goaltender, but being from Winnipeg, I'm having family connections to the NHL. I think it was the lockout season for the NHL in what was that?
Like 04, 05, or the 48 gamer in 2013.
2013.
Mm-hmm.
During that lockout, a lot of the Jets players had gone home, but I knew someone in the organization, and they called me one day and go, "Hey, Ryan, do you want to come suit up? There's about 12 Jets players that need a goalie to shoot at." So I showed up, and at the time, that was like Dustin Byfuglien, Tobias Enstrom, Blake Wheeler, still a few players from that core group that are still on the team, but one of the scariest experiences of my life. Obviously, I was about to go into college, and I had the experience, but when you jump into a net with NHL caliber players shooting at you, it's a whole different experience.
That's crazy. Who was the toughest to stop? Not only I'm sure Byfuglien has a friggin' hammer, and then the same, and other guys maybe that just friggin' dangled you.
Yeah, they were nice about it.
Yeah,
they were nice about it. They didn't really go too crazy. Obviously they were just trying to stay in shape during that short lockout there. But I would probably say Blake Wheeler, that accuracy, he was pinpointing the shot every time. And, by the time you looked to see if you had caught it in your glove, it was already in the back of the net. So, like I said, a whole different experience, but something, that I'll always remember and got to say I did, so.
Little flick of the wrists here. Tell us, how do you have that connection where somebody from the Jets to have that happen?
So my uncle is Scott O'Neill, who is currently the assistant coach for the Washington Capitals. So
had some head coaching stops too, right?
Yep. Yeah. So growing up, when I was born, he was kind of at his tail end of playing. He played for the Jets, he played for Buffalo, played for the Moose at the end of his career. So growing up, I've kind of always followed him. I idolized him. He spent time with the Moose coaching. He spent time in Chicago, Columbus. He was just in New York with Vigneault before he went to Washington. So, people ask kind of where or why I wanted to get in coaching, and he was probably one of the reasons I'd say I did. Obviously he has that NHL background and kind of jumped in from there, and but at the same time, you don't have to play in the NHL to get to that level. If you look at some of the coaches in the NHL currently, and even GMs. But just I idolized him and kind of his career and wanting to know what or seeing what he did and what he could do, and just always being a part of the game and the love for the game. And that was kind of something that I had, like I said previously, after I was done playing, I wasn't ready to give up the game yet. And, coaching was kind of the next step or next option for me. And so that's kind of where I followed suit. And I have another uncle, John Miner, who played in the NHL as well, and he was actually played for the Oilers with Gretzky and was actually in that trade with Gretzky to LA.
Count yourself lucky that you were only getting scored on by Blake Wheeler and not Wayne Gretzky. I'm sure he was going to be nice too, but yeah, that's crazy how friggin' small world and families and all that stuff. And I don't want to put any connection in jeopardy that you have, but I am curious, what's kind of stronger for you? Just the nostalgia of the old Jets and looking back now, obviously they're playing in Arizona, or are you real diehard for the new team that used to be the Thrashers?
Honestly, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I like the Jets. I'll support the Jets, but I've never really been a Jets fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like the team. You have to, being from Winnipeg. I'll support them. I'll go watch them, but I've kind of always followed suit of who my favorite goaltender was. So back in the day, I idolized Eddie Belfour. So unfortunately, I was a Maple Leafs fan. And now, since his retirement, Henrik Lundqvist, the king, has always been my guy, and so kind of being a Rangers fan because of him, and it just turned out that worked out that my uncle actually coached there and got to coach him. So I have his jersey hanging in my room. And
has he ever gotten you like on the phone with him or anything like that? Or
no,
okay,
no, unfortunately not. But I mean, I have some signed stuff from the team and from him, and obviously. So yeah, no, I mean, always been a Lundqvist fan ever since Belfour retired, and when he retires in a few years, I'm gonna have to find a new team.
Latch on to the next goalie or whatever, or finally just hunker down with the Jets no matter who. Hellebuck's pretty good. He's on a little bit of a come up.
Yeah, no, I enjoy watching Hellebuck. He's been phenomenal the last couple of seasons. It's just once you kind of get attached to one, it's hard to move on until they're not playing anymore.
How much do you idolize Henrik Lundqvist, not only for his goaltending, but for his GQ style?
Great style. Obviously, especially in coaching, every year I'm trying to increase my suit. I guess you could say suit game. So. Don't
act like you're up like Tony's age. We're like, are the kids saying suit game or what?
Yeah. So I mean, no. Even off the ice, Lundqvist. He has his charity. He has his fashion line, that kind of thing. Doing things outside of hockey for the community is a huge part of, kind of why I idolize him and everything he does. And so, but in sense of the suits, it's always good to have a fresh suit when you're on the bench for a home game.
Didn't Eddie Belfour, if you attribute your fandom to him and him being on the Leafs, I'm guessing here, and I'm looking it up at the same time, that would have been right when they bet the Flyers, right, in the second round, and Jeremy Roenick scored that goal to go to the Eastern Conference Final. Is that in the ballpark or whatever?
Yep.
Didn't want to deep dive it, but I just want to mention go Flyers. Yeah. And I've done it with several guys already about it. One more point before you say about not necessarily being the biggest Jets fan of all. One thing that has to be good for the real diehards is I know Blake Wheeler has put up points, but he's not really like the frontline name that you might hear across the league as much as like a Patrik Laine. What's it been like for having guys like that on the team?
Oh, Winnipeg's always been a team where, the points aren't coming from one particular player. Obviously, Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler have stepped up and leading the team in points. But when you look back at the games, you're seeing that depth that they have of those third, fourth liners producing, not just those top players, so you can really, in a sense, kind of like our program where we can throw anyone on the ice and know that they're going to perform and score goals for us.
Speaking of suiting up, what was it like working at Duffy's, getting people ready to go for hockey?
Oh, great experience, Duffy, father figure to me. He helped me a lot here while I was in Minot. Taught me how to sharpen skates. Official team skate sharpener.
It's like Gordon Bombay and Charlie Conway.
Oh yeah, official team skate sharpener for the Minot State women's hockey team. Tried to teach a few girls how to do it, but they just were too scared to mess up their teammates' skates. So it was put on me all season. So, but no, it was just a great experience. Anything hockey related, you always want to be a part of. So. I think the best part about it for me, especially being in the position I'm in now, is just building those relationships. You see people coming in with their kids, and they're buying equipment, getting their skates sharp, and that kind of thing, and just having those conversations, getting to know people. In the hockey community really helped, because now I can go to the rink and, if I either know, if I'm looking at someone, I know them or they know me, So, and Minot's a smaller community, but the hockey community is very tight-knit. So, meeting new people and building those relationships working there definitely helped, especially helped me grow as a member of the community here in Minot.
Sounds like it could be a fun job just because of, like, you're a hockey guy. I love sports. I would go to, like, sporting goods stores and check out the jerseys all the time. Obviously, behind the scenes, there might be some tough, busy work going on. But just within, like, the frame of retail, I think it would definitely take much longer for me to realize it's retail compared to, like, one time I worked at an Eddie Bauer. I got hired for Black Friday Rush the day after, and it was by contract, and they didn't call me back again. So clearly I wasn't cut out for it, but it had to be fun with the sporting goods stuff, huh?
Yeah, I'll never be able to compete with Duffy, but if you're walking into the store, you always know that you're gonna have a good conversation. Whether usually you'll walk out buying something, but even if you didn't, you enjoyed the experience, because Duffy's a great guy, loves to have a good conversation. He'll talk about hockey, fishing, life in general, and so when people would walk in, obviously, I'd try and spark that kind of similar conversation. Obviously, people don't know me as well as Duffy, but you get a good conversation going, and you get to know how someone's day went or what they're planning for the weekend, and just like I said before, building those relationships.
Yeah, and speaking of things that you aren't sure that you might be able to impart on other people, like skate sharpening, how's your golf game going?
Well, that's a hit and miss, Ben.
Literally.
It really depends on the day. Being a lefty playing at
okay, just because you're left-handed, it depends on the day.
Being a lefty playing at Wildwood, I'm a member there. It's a very right-handed dominant course. So
until the 10th hole.
Until the 10th hole. So if I'm slicing it, I'm losing my ball. So lately, I've been playing chicken and using my irons on the tee box, but too scared to pull out the driver. But maybe I'll have to hit the range a few more times so I can try and hit the ball straight. But depending on the day, some days are good, some days are bad, depending on the weather and how many candy bars we've had that day. But
100%, yeah. I'm just like you. I'm a double-decker when it comes to the 3-wood off the tee and then shot 2. I got to catch up, but at least you can hit on yards. And the common group that I've been with you is me, you, and Sal Rodriguez.
Yep.
Minot State baseball star, all that good stuff. So obviously got to put you in the middle of it. What athletes are better at golf, hockey, or baseball players?
Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for saying
We'll
this.
ask him too when he's on the show.
Oh,
yeah.
I'd say hockey players, but I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. But
with who?
Oh,
baseball guys.
Well, it just depends. I mean, Sal's a better golfer than me, but I mean, that's hard to say. It depends on the sport. I mean, he could kick my butt at baseball. I'm pretty sure I could skate laps around him on the ice, but in a neutral sport,
you're both goalies. Yeah.
In a neutral sport, I mean, Sal hits the ball far. And that's probably attested to being a baseball player and swinging the bat at 80, 90 mile, 100 mile an hour pitches, so.
Not to be like a Wildwood commercial, but we love it there because, of course, the $125 membership drive, it pays for itself, within a week or so. It's awesome. With that being said, playing tons of golf, getting a great opportunity with this weather going on right now. What's the most that you've ever played golf in a single day, and with all the fatigue of it, how well did your skills hold up over time?
So last season, I got my first. I've only been golfing for about 3 years now. So last season was the first time I bought a full membership. I had one at Souris. Last summer, I was in between jobs because I was waiting for my visa to come in. So I was golfing every day. So I think I started out in the morning and played 18 by myself, and then played another 9 after lunch, and then by that time my buddies had gotten off of work, and we played another 18. First 27 went well. By the evening, I was in a cart, and sun had got to me, and by that time, the game had kind of gone downhill from there, but luckily we were playing best ball, so I didn't have to make a good shot every time.
That happens, man. My personal record, I haven't been able to do 3 laps at Wildwood yet, but I have played 36 at Souris. The yard is a little bit bigger there, but definitely looking forward to maybe doing 3 or 4, even 4 laps at Wildwood. Super excited. By the way, for you to be a Souris Valley member, I mean, kudos to you. Without being a park employee, getting that membership over the Wildwood one, your Canadian money just stretching far, huh?
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't really know about the Wildwood membership last year until after I had bought my Souris membership.
So are you on the 125 for 1 year or the 90 for 2?
I'm on the 125 for 1 year.
Got it. Okay.
So, but I mean, even then, you play 5 rounds and it's paid for. So
Larry McFall didn't scare you off the course at Souris, did he?
No. Every time I showed up there, he always seemed to be done playing. But I ran into him a few times on the course. But he enjoys golfing too.
I had my most recent record with Wildwood teed off. I played 2 approach shots from 2 different wrong fairways. So I'll just leave you at that just to inspire you for your next time out, Ryan, all right?
Yeah.
Any other notable wayward stories of golf for you?
When I was starting out, if you would have saw me 2 years ago, I was a terrible golfer. So a lot of the guys I played with, had to teach me how to swing the club, not necessarily hold the club properly, but at least hold it properly so that I'd at least try and hold it straight. And I've broken a few club heads, 1 or 2. I think we were on the 11th hole at Souris, right over top of the that big hill that you hit it onto the fairway, and it goes probably about 50 feet down there. Mm-hmm. I took a swing with my driver, and I chunked it, and the driver head went farther than the ball.
Yeah, you just think, especially when you're on those launch pad type holes and you just friggin' burn it. That stinks. But on the bright side for you, Ryan, at least you can say, your game 2 years ago. If you're talking about my game 2 years ago as opposed to now, it's like I am traveling from the past and have just gotten here in a time machine because, we just like to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Always got to end it on a high note. Ryan Miner, thank you.
Thanks, bud.